Welcome into the Kevin and Jason show. Wow, another Victory Monday, the third straight. I'm Kevin Masseri, your host today with Jason Shannon. We'll be talking about the Bills' victory over the Bengals. Pretty good game all around. So we'll get into some of those details, nitty-gritty notes and nuggets that we have. Also some news coming out of Harrison Phillips' IR injury, torn ACL. He'll be going on IR. So we will talk a little bit about defensive tackle as there's two practice squad candidates, but I want to talk about some veteran guys that are out there on the market and answer a few questions. So, Jason, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. There was going to be a big difference of how I was feeling today based on how those last 6 or so minutes went. And it was a little scary, but 3-0 is 3-0. And it doesn't matter whether it's raining or thundering or super thundering outside right now. 3-0 is a happy Monday for me. So, all smiles. Can't even see it, but I promise you.
It's always a happy Monday on a Victory Monday. 3 straight. Haven't won 3 straight since the famed 2011 season, Jason. The season that went downhill pretty quickly, right? That was just the one of the seasons that everyone will point to with fast starts. The Bills seem to get off to one or the other, a fast start. They never seem to start average to their fast or like a super slow start. But that's one of the seasons that the team did get off to a fast start and just was a fluky, not good team, I guess is the best way to put it. I remember they beat the Chiefs and the Raiders and the Patriots before actually losing to a Bengals team. That's one of Andy Dalton's wins, I would assume, right? And then going to 4-1 after beating Philly. Everyone thought that 4-1 usually a good indicator of at least a wild card berth, and they just
the odds are against you not making it there
at 4-1, especially lost to a Giants team. I remember that game. Went to the bye. It was actually the same schedule that they have this year because it's the NFC East, right? So
yeah,
they get to it's the same exact schedules that year, so that's why it's relevant. They went and beat a Washington team. Actually went to 5-2. We're in good shape there at 5. I mean, you're in great shape at 5-2, and then they lost
like 7 straight.
7 straight. Not always good teams in there. So. That was 2011. This is now in 2019. So a full 8 years later. So a full segment, a whole schedule flipping. So this is the next time we play this almost the exact schedule. It's actually literally exact. Tennessee and Denver were both on the schedule, Jason. So it was literally the exact schedule that they played this year.
Hopefully that's not an omen for things to come.
Yeah. So it's pretty impressive that, that this is the year that they have to play that schedule again. So it shouldn't be an omen. I mean, they had the Patriots week 3 that year and won. They have Patriots week 4 this year. So we'll see if that means anything or if not. The Bills, was that the last time they meaningfully beat the Patriots besides maybe a Jimmy Garoppolo random win? Doug Marrone, I think I remember, had one. But was that their last meaningful win against New England?
Man, that's a long time.
Brady's 30-3, so or whatever it is. So
they did the one like week 17 one, and then they did the one where they beat Brissett.
Yep,
they have a Garoppolo and a Brissett win, I think.
They have Garoppolo, Brissett, and 3 Brady wins.
And 3 Brady wins. I don't really want to look at it because then I'd have to look at the chart of 30 Brady wins and 3 losses. I don't really want to do that.
Well,
the 2011 team, not that, I mean, they're not as good as this team, but, there was a reason for optimism with CJ Speller and Fred Jackson sort of as a duo. Ryan Fitzpatrick, like at his peak, most effective, I guess. That's probably the season he got the contract, right?
Yeah, mid-season.
Another really solid defense with your Nick Barnett's and Jarius Birds. That's probably the season before he got paid. Kelvin Shepard was on that team. Maybe that defense wasn't that good. Oh,
this all came together for him for at least half of a season.
But anyways, with that team and with I think the team previous to that, I want to say it was like 2008 where we started 4-1. The roster just never felt like it was there, and it felt really fluky. And even though I could see a situation where this season you could look back if we do end up not doing that well and being like, well, we started the season with 3 bad teams or 2.5 bad teams. So I could see where that might go that way, but this team feels a whole lot more complete and talented and just ready to keep this going rather than that team where it's like, all right, are we gonna get a George Wilson pick six and good performance out of Donald Jones, or we're not relying on people like that anymore, which is
Right.
just cool. It's a positive.
So the Bills obviously had a really strong start to the game. Went up early 8-0, kicked the field goal, went up 11-0, then 14-0, pretty much in control. They had like 40 yards total at that point. Obviously, the Yeldon fumble took 3 off. The Josh Allen intentional grounding took 3 off. It should have been 20-0. Pretty much would have said taking it out of reach in the first half, more or less. But those things didn't go their way. First half of the game yesterday, Jason, we'll start, I guess, a good place to start. What did you think of their overall performance in the first half? Obviously, they left those 6 points on the board minimum. You can't have your backup running back fumbling there. That's a brutal fumble. I think they might have even scored a touchdown on that drive.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the intentional grounding, which would have been a field. That was a 3-point penalty. Yeldon could have been 3, but it could have been a 7-point penalty. So where are you at kind of with that? I mean, Josh Allen played pretty well in the first half. Another 180-yard first half that he seems to only – these third quarters are brutal, but we're going to the second half here in a moment. What's your opinion on the first half, kind of how it went, how the defense played? Andy Dalton still only finished with 249 yards for a touchdown and 2 picks, 29.8 QBR and a 63 rating. Got a lot of fourth quarter Andy Dalton yards that he gets. It was awful in the first half. I think 30 yards came on that one drive at the end of the half, as well as I think he got the ball back and they got it. Yeah, he had wasn't it just on one play that he had a majority of those yards? And then the weird Bills kicked a field goal with 7 seconds left for some reason. And then he got that play for another 4. A majority of his yards were that one pass play and then that end of the game flea flicker they tried to do thing. I think that was like 50 of his 70 first half yards.
It was a bad first half for him.
Right there. So what's your kind of opinion on how that first half went?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty similar. I thought it was similar to the first game with the Jets, but with less catastrophic results in terms of the first half. I thought we moved the ball well. I thought we had some good ideas on stuff. We did things differently than maybe the team that was coming up against us would have expected out of our offense. I thought Josh Allen mostly looked sharp, and then we had a couple of plays where it just didn't work out. And in the first game against the Jets, it was 4 turnovers. In this game, it was the Yeldon fumble, which isn't I guess that's a turnover all the same in that case. But then you have the intentional grounding play, which was like lightly suspect, but probably shouldn't do it. And that's not I guess it's a turnover. We still get the punt. So it was less disastrous than the Jets game where it was just like we were just trying to feed them points. And most of the time they weren't fully following through on it, but we could have been up a lot more than 14-0. And even though I thought that a lot of aspects of our game looked good, I was coming out of that first half thinking, all right, we're up. They're going to be tired. We're going to be able to just pound them on this. They're not going to get any closer than this at this point. So even though this wasn't our best half, we were fairly good and we were in position. And I thought the defense was really good for the most part. And for having the league leader in receptions and the league leader in receiving yards for, players who had played 2 games, I thought that was a pretty good performance. Boyd ended up getting his, but Dalton was absolutely just useless for, the first quarter and a half, basically, but in any sort of time that mattered. John Ross was put in check for the most part. He got open on a couple plays, but he was also showing people why he's not a complete receiver yet. I think he's still a very dangerous threat, and for the most part, we did a good job of mitigating that threat. They have 2 capable tight ends. They combined for a catch for 18 yards on the game.
2 well-paid tight ends.
Yeah, they paid both of them, and the third one got paid by us. But, really the first half, I was just thinking, all right, this isn't going to be a super pretty win, but there's a chance we could win this 24-3 or something. It was, I just didn't, I thought that the worst was probably had already happened because I was, we kept talking about how tired the Cincinnati team was going to be. And, that wasn't necessarily going to show itself in the first half, but it certainly was going to in the second. And I mean, later in the game, they had even more injuries with Sean Williams coming in and out of the game. That defensive line got even worse with Sam Hubbard's in a walking boot today. Like, they can't afford that at all. So I was just thinking, all right, first half's done, wasn't great, but smooth sailing is ahead. And you got your home crowd behind you. Nobody is doubting that the home fans did their part in that game. Everybody that came out of there said they were loud as hell. And so, yeah, I mean, first half, if you're grading it, you graded a B-, but you're assuming that it's going to be a B+ or an A in the second half. So, I don't know. That's pretty much what I had.
Yeah, and to reiterate kind of the final point of the first half. So, you had a 24-yard pass, it looks like, to Auden Tate there. So they had 60 yards in the first half. 24 of them were on the play in their 2-minute drill before the half was ended. Mm-hmm. And then got sacked by Jordan Phillips, didn't really do anything, and punted it. The Bills took a timeout and they punted it back. And then the Bills drove a little bit in a minute and 21 seconds. Really just needed another timeout to make that thing really useful. We'll tack that in a minute. We'll just finish on the Bengals here. Dalton for 21 yards to Auden Tate again, and then that was with 1 second left. He fumbled it to Poyer. So 45 yards, Jason, were on 2 Auden Tate plays at the end of the 2-minute drill, one of which, half of that which shouldn't have even accounted. So that's how good the defense played in the first half. Back to the last 2-minute drill. So the Bills let up that one pass play, pretty much meaningful pass play to Tate for 24 yards, then buckled down in the rest of that drive about on the 50. Dalton was sacked once again. He missed Boyd and John Ross, and they had a punt it. The Bills took their timeout number 2 with 1:35. Ball goes back to Buffalo. They drive a little bit. That's the fumble that was actually a fumble, but was recovered out of bounds clearly. Never had possession before he bounced out of bounds. Like half his body, Vigil's body, was out of bounds there. Anyways, they still had a pretty decent drive. Hit Cole Beasley for 6 yards, and he scrambled again for 11 yards. We spiked the ball. Then TJ Yeldon passed for 12 yards, overthrown to Zay Jones, which he was wide open. Could have been a touchdown there. I love the play call there with 14 seconds. Actually, one of my favorite play calls there. However, then there's 7 seconds left, Jason. 2nd and 10 on Cincinnati's 44. 7 seconds, no timeouts. Worst case scenario, you don't get to kick a 62-yard field goal. What is your opinion on how that half ended? Because I have some strong thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I don't know if I have as strong of a take as you do about it. I know you have strong special teams takes most of the time. Obviously, they had to go and ask Hauschka if he thought he could hit it. He's got the wind to his back. It was pretty strong that day. If you really have like a bunch of confidence that he's going to hit that thing, I don't know. I mean, 62 is a long way, but it's you don't want to mess around if you think that you have points and you have a quarterback who's prone to making mistakes and it isn't always making the best decision at every point. You just had on that drive before him, or actually that drive, him like carelessly lose the ball in bounds where it was recovered out of bounds. So anyways, I don't know, it might have been a little bit of a lack of faith in Allen to make the right decision there. But the thing is, like, 62 is like a big difference between 52. If we're at 52 at that point, then I definitely think, like, I guess you just go and kick it. But the chances of somebody making 62 who's never made 62 and is older than the last time that he made 58, you probably have to go and try to make your situation a little bit better. I don't know if he was lined up where he wanted to be in terms of where he was on the hashes. I forget. But I was thinking like right down the middle. I'm trying to remember.
He was. Yep.
It was right down the middle, which I don't know if he prefers that on the long kicks, but it clearly doesn't on the extra points. I don't know. I guess you probably should just go and do it. So they called the timeout to get into that, right? To
No,
stop the clock, or
no, that
did
was
they
a
go
Zay
out of
Jones open
bounds?
down the sideline misthrow, overthrow.
Oh, okay. So it was incomplete. So okay, then yeah, that doesn't change anything. So yeah, I mean, you probably got to go get the yards. 62 is just such a long kick. I mean, I don't know what you think about it. I I was more mad about other things that happened in the first half, decision making wise. That one's just kind of like, I don't know. You got to trust that your kicker who's been in the league for 10 plus years is going to be like, knows whether he can make that thing or not. And it certainly didn't seem like he had the leg for it. It wasn't like he just
Right.
missed left. Like he missed left and short. So
Yeah. So my take's less special teamy in this specific case about whether he can make it or bad being a bad special teams play or bad special teams or coverage or whatever. This was more about time management. So in my opinion, you do what every other, I'm going to say 28 out of the 32 teams would have done there. And that when they're on the 45, 44 with 7 seconds and it's attempt a pass play and worst case, it goes into the dirt. I think it's a lack of faith in Allen and your offensive line. Because really the only thing even worse than Allen that could blow that up would be your offensive line not blocking for 1 second for Allen to be able to get the ball out on an out route, 5-yard, 6-yard out route. So the guy never made a 58-yarder. I like Hauschka. I am overall happy that he won the kicking job and that he looks to be back to normal. But like you mentioned earlier, when you said, he's older, he, hadn't made 58 in a while, 4 yards plus that, even with the wind, he came up short and missed on a direction, proves that. I think I think the risk is worth the reward of it being thrown into the dirt or getting sacked or whatever, I guess is the ultimate risk of a 62-yard field goal. But I think the reward's a lot greater than that risk. Like the only thing that's like absolutely worse would be a pick six, I guess. So I think you go out there and at the very least, Jason, you go out there and you throw it into the dirt or you spike it because you gave them 2 seconds. So with the ball at the 50 or whatever, I mean, plus Bills territory. So 62 would have been 48 of the Bills. So I think you have to at least go up there and spike it, bring you into third down and 5 seconds or 4 seconds left or whatever it would have been. And whatever, I think I have a little bit less of a problem with it, but you kicked it with 7 seconds with 3 downs. So you had a second, third, and fourth. And you didn't at least even attempt to make it into his 50. Like you're talking 4 yards. We're not talking 14 yards. You're talking 4 yards that, I mean,
yeah, I mean, I guess you have to know if that's going to make the difference or not. I mean,
they must not obviously didn't think the kicking from 57.
They didn't think it, but I also didn't think she was going to make that kick.
I didn't at all.
I mean, I'm not the coaching staff and I'm not Stephen Hauschka, but I wasn't there thinking he's going to nail this.
I thought the entire time about them getting the ball at the 48. I mean, obviously it didn't amount to anything, but it doesn't take much for someone to throw from the 48 into the end zone. Or, I mean, we've seen way more. I mean, there should be zero chance of that even though it's rare. There should be zero chance of that happening at the end of the half. So that's kind of my gripe. So even if you don't have any trust on a play call that you could have for 5-6 yards, it makes the kick a little bit easier. Fine. You got to run up there and spike the ball then. I mean, to get it into, so they don't get the ball on a miss. So at the very least, you kick it wide, you kick it left, you kick it right. Half's over. Everyone lives. I thought that it's not very hard to go out there and snap it and spike it like you would any other time because a kick takes 5 seconds. Like that's the max that they'll run off on a kick. So
yeah,
leaving 2 on your side of the field is risky because I don't know if you take Dalton into the wind into account, but Aaron Rodgers can convert that. So
sure, has many times before.
I don't think you ever leave that up in Pat Mahomes or whoever it is. Obviously, these are the better quarterbacks in the NFL, but Dalton has had some magic. The Bills made the playoffs on something fluky, or semi-fluky. So I don't think that you give anyone time in the situation we didn't have to. If you had to 4th down, obviously, but you had 3 downs, spike the ball, eat it. Try more. My opinion is I still think that 28 out of 32 teams maybe try there, Jason. So take that out. Say that that's already sunk. We're not going to try. We don't trust the O-line. We don't trust Allen. I think you got to go up there and spike it so you don't give the other team ball. I just thought it was a pretty poor play that could have came back to bite you. Obviously, it didn't. They threw from the Buffalo 48, ended up throwing a 32-yard pass actually to Auden Tate. And it was recovered, and he tried to pitch it back, I think, and technically recovered by Poyer. So most of their yards were on those two Auden Tate throws there at the end of the half. So that wrapped up 14-0. Getting into the second half, the second half kind of started slow. They punted, we punted, and then Andy Dalton threw a pick intended for Boyd, but it was picked by Trey White. Half the quarter had gone by. The Bills had the ball in Cincy territory. What are you thinking at that point, Jason, after that?
Oh, we're still good. We've been playing good all game. But it's like if you don't score points and man, they've really stalled out these third quarters now this year, which is –
I think they have like 120 total yards in the third quarter.
Like you're supposed to really come out of the second half and have adjustments and come out with the same motivation that you had in the first quarter. It certainly seems like they wait till the fourth for that to happen. But they were still sluggish. But yeah, if you're not scoring enough points and you only have 14 points, it doesn't take a terrible defensive performance for somebody to come back. It wasn't our best defensive quarter. There were plays that were frustrating, but at some point, I mean, this Bills team really stomps people and really is just shutting down drives and, made that first half just a terror for the Bengals. And you just can't get that for all 10 possessions in a game, every game. And that's where the offense just got to come through. And sometimes it does feel a little more dire. 21-17 is not the worst offensive performance that, we've ever seen in the NFL. Just watch any Thursday night game and you'll probably see a worse offense than that. But it does feel very weird and kind of like a dire situation when everything gets compacted into the first three drives of the first quarter and then, the comeback in the fourth. And we haven't gotten there yet, but Josh Allen obviously has been fantastic in the fourth and has generally done that so far in his career. But these thirds are starting to get really worrying, and that's supposed to be really the quarter that you see what the coaching staff has to offer. And, the quarter where you see Belichick pull off all of his stuff, or now he's made his adjustments and now they come out and they score in the first three drives. That stuff happens for them all the time. It seems like instead our third quarters have been either both teams stalling out because the defense is still hanging on, or as in the last two games, the offense or the other team's offense coming back and making something that really shouldn't have been a game whatsoever a game. That would have been a terrible loss.
It would have been a really bad loss.
It would have been against all odds, and even though we still would have looked at it at 2-1, and if you told me before the season that we would have gotten to 2-1 out of those first three games, I would have said, cool, that's still a chance to be in the playoffs. But with the home crowd and the heat and the very undermanned Bengals and the offensive line that wasn't healthy for them, and the defensive line not being able to rotate at all and losing secondary players behind our home crowd, it's an inexcusable game to have been worried about or to lose, but we pulled it out. So I can't harp on it too much. It's just if we have to point to anything, it's how we're coming out on the half right now. And
I think
that's going to be how we're going to improve our team.
Yeah, 96% were the odds after that Trey White interception of Andy Dalton into the halfway through the third quarter. So 96% win probability after that interception. So they were flirting with that 4% for a little bit. But that's this time of the game that it's essentially over with even a field goal, I'm going to say. With even a field goal probably brings it to 99 and probably ends the game. More or less. Obviously, anything can happen, but this specific game we're talking about with these specific teams, it would end this game, I would think 100 out of 100, but maybe 99 out of 100, as the percentages would say. It was a 96% chance the Bills would win this after that pick. But instead, the drive that really, I guess, kept them in and basically the defense started to lapse after this. So after that interception, obviously, we saw a short throwaway pushed out of shows Josh Allen short left to John Brown, who's pushed out of bounds, and then the throw up in the air pick again, trying to avoid another intentional grounding that he claims the hit made him throw it in bounds. That's what he said. So I don't think he could possibly. I have to believe, at least believe him a decent amount, because I don't think he thought he was going to complete that pass, right? So
I don't know. It's Josh Allen.
I guess
this is the stuff that people had doubts about him about. I mean, he's obviously very, very improved. I think just his general accuracy has improved a lot. But I mean, these plays are on tape. They're on tape from last year, and they're on tape from his entire college career. And he's got to get better at them. And that's his number one thing. It's like, he just can't say F it. Like, he's got to stay. And you notice that these things sometimes happen when the offense is stalling a little bit. It's not like he gets hyper confident and he starts throwing crazy passes. Usually when he's in rhythm, he's in rhythm. But at that point, we had reached kind of a lull, and I think he really tried to complete a pass there.
Right. Okay.
There was a guy within the vicinity. It wasn't a guy that was going to catch a pass, but
he has Cole Beasley.
Cole Beasley out jumping, the other team's smallest cornerbacks are going to be larger than Cole Beasley, who just had him fronted. And there was no chance of that happening. But I think that Josh Allen saw that. He had a last-second split decision and thought that he was going to throw that ball 10 yards further than he did. And I'll have to see the all-22 or any sort of stuff like that to confirm that, because that's only from the views that I saw on game day. But I don't know. It looked like
he
called it a hero ball. It wasn't a hero, intentional grounding. It was he tried to complete a pass.
Yeah, and then obviously you had right off that interception, you had a 3-yard mix and run, then an 18-yard to Eifert, the only tight end catch of the game. They misread the play, got behind the cover 2, caught it right at the 2, and Andy Dalton's little 1-yard zone read into the end zone. Whatever, lived to fight another day. But then the offense came out and immediately didn't do anything. Looked like they started a drive, but then got their first down. Looked like they were going to be moving again, but then I think they went 0 for 3 incompletions, and then a punch 22 yards to Cincinnati 18. So a 22-yard punt at that point, a juncture of the game from your punter. I don't see how we'll rant on that later. I don't see how you can play.
You've already done a lot of special teams.
Yeah, I don't want to get into it, so that's why I'm going to ignore it for now. But I don't see how you can trot him out next week after not doing anything to help. Then you get into an 11-play, 82-yard touchdown drive there to make it 14-14. Really the worst the defense had played. You can blame it on a couple things, the offense not doing anything, though the defense wasn't on the field a lot. So a lot of people, they've been on the field. Nah, not at that point. They allowed a 3-play, 22-yard drive over a minute. Weren't on the field a ton prior to that. That was just a really poor drive by the defense. Offense gets the ball back, punts it right back. They come down. Defense does not do anything again. Lets up a 9-play, 60-yard drive for a field goal. Then the offense answers, obviously, with the great drive by Josh Allen. He's just great in the fourth quarter. Leads the team down the drive. Frank Gore gets the 1-yard touchdown. The defense then does, more intentionally, I would have bet, does allow another 9-play drive down the field, does get the tip pick, was still feeling pretty good at that point, that they weren't going to at least get in the end zone. But they did bend a lot in that second half, quarter and a half, Jason, to take the win 21-17. I personally don't think you can shut them out. I don't think you can. I'm fine with, obviously, the touchdown off the interception. I'm fine with even the touchdown, the long touchdown, bad drive. They had 11 plays, 82 yards, tie it up. I think they needed to win a 14-14 game. I think they needed to lock it up, but they did let them drive for that field goal. I think the number one defense, top 5 defense in the league, should lock that down to at least give it back to your team for a winning field goal. They did buckle down to allow just a field goal, 17-14. The Bills went down and did end up scoring, and they got the end game pick. But wrap me up the second half, in your opinion, second half. Specifically, I think we talked about the offense a little bit. Specifically, the second half defense, kind of what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't an awesome half. They bended more than they had in the first half. But in the end, I guess they did make the plays on the interceptions that they needed to do to close the game out. It is a difficult game. I'm going to give them like a little bit of a pass. I
Okay.
mean, I'm not going to say that it was a good performance in the second half, but I'll say that it wasn't super surprising that happened, considering how long the game had gone, and the Heat worked against Buffalo too. They live in Buffalo. They're not used to 85 degrees in the middle of a stadium every single game, and football's a tiring game, so
Okay.
I could see that happening. But they made the plays at the end of the day. They didn't allow any points. They're still, I mean, they still have stuff to work on for sure, just like any other team does. And I thought overall, if you just look at the entirety of it, I mean, you really did stop, for the most part, the receivers that you needed to stop. And even though that one drive was pretty painful to watch, Joe Mixon only averaged 4 yards carry. Andy Dalton didn't complete a pass in the first quarter. John Ross, who had tore up the first 2 weeks, ends at 2 for 22, even if he had some drops there. You can only I can only ask for so much out of a team, and if you had that second half coming off of giving up 21 points in the first quarter, or in the first half, I think that's a bad performance. I would still put more of it on, a really, really ineffective offense in the third quarter, some mistakes that led to the turnovers, not getting the points where you clearly had to in the first half, in the second quarter especially. That's still where my problem is going to be with this team. I think that, again, your defense holds the other team to 17 points in the 2019 season. You should be winning games.
Yep.
And right now, what do we have? 66 points on the season or something. I'm trying to.
Roughly.
Rough. I remember seeing the stat. I could do the math right now if I could think of it, but it's not a lot of points, and we got some stuff to figure out on that side, and just how to sustain a game's worth. Because again, this second and third quarter stretches where we're just not doing anything on offense is starting to really hurt our team.
You got to play you got to play outside of the first and fourth quarters, absolutely.
And it just seems like they get their first 15, they get those plays scripted, and they look really creative, and then they sort of fall into a lull after they've run out of those plays. And then in the fourth quarter, we get a juiced up Josh Allen because he's a freaking gamer, and it's great to have a quarterback like that. But we're missing a big portion of the game of just being ineffective.
Yep. So Josh Allen's pretty much ranked 16th in every category: yards, QBR, on completion percentage. So he's 16th now, 750 yards, on pace for 4,000 yard season, on pace for 16 passing touchdowns. You did like to see that go up, but does add in the 2 rushing touchdowns already in 3 games. So is on pace for plenty of rushing touchdowns there. 8 rushing touchdowns again. So he adds another dynamic. You always got to consider his athleticism and his rushing totals when you're talking about Josh Allen, because it's part of what makes Josh Allen Josh Allen. He's already gone for 105 yards and two touchdowns on the ground. So he's going to have another good rushing year. Really good dual threat quarterback.
I don't even care about the final rushing yards. Just the way he picks up first downs and is such a threat in the red zone. Those are just like hugely. Obviously, I'm not going to be mad if he's ripping off 40, 50-yard runs in random places like he did last year. But when you're inside the 7, like, you got to imagine that he's – and maybe it's the wrong thing for him to do, but he's looking up. He's making a quick decision on if his guys are open. He's getting downfield, and it's really hard to stop there. I mean, really hard to stop in the red zone. I almost wish we would do more of that stuff in short yardage. He improvises some of it, but I'd almost rather have, if Allen QB sneak it, than try to get 2 yards with Gore or Yeldon. But I don't know, maybe you're protecting your quarterback, but it seems like that would be almost nearly automatic to pick up first downs like that.
Yeah, I mean, the Bills ended with 416 total yards. It was a good offensive day. 37 minutes of possession to 23 minutes of possession. So the defense really did have some breaks in there. So they did kind of like the Jets game. They did a lot of stuff right offensively. What they didn't do right was they left at least 7 6 at least, but upwards of 10 to 13 to 14 points on the board. That would have ended the game early. At least maybe there's more doubt in the Cincinnati minds if it's 21-0 rather than 14-0. And I think that just even 17-0 at times would have at least mitigated a potential, at worst would have been an overtime game. So anyways, they got it done, Jason. They're going into a tough Patriots game, but they did come out with an injury or two, Feliciano in a neck brace, and more looks to be at least shorter term. They said all the injuries so far are shorter term, except for the Harrison Phillips ACL tear. So they're going to need to get their fourth defensive tackle and rotational guy back in this lineup as soon as possible. Look, Sean McDermott was said today that they're going to be bringing in guys shortly. So there's options here, Jason. One, you can sign the 2 guys you have on your practice squad, and you have a couple of options, and a guy you had throughout camp, and then another guy that you picked up from the Dolphins, which they really like their Dolphins defensive tackles. Already gave Jordan Phillips a pretty big backup deal, $4.5 million. And then this year they went out and right after he signed Vincent Taylor, put him on the practice squad after a couple of okay seasons, had some injuries, but they also do have Kyle Pecco on the roster. So obviously the biggest thing you can do is just promote one of those guys. Okay, that's fine. I think that as the days go on, that's more likely to happen. But if you see something tomorrow with workouts, and I think it's potential you see something tomorrow till tomorrow evening that the veteran market is open for availability. I know it's pretty easy to say, let's just promote one of them, Jason, but you do have a couple of guys that I think are worth mentioning. You got a Benny Logan, a guy that's been linked to the Bills at times, Willie Henry, a 25-year-old who's played well. So he's got some age there on his side rather than the typical veteran. Muhammad Wilkerson, who's had his issues, Earl Mitchell, starter for 49ers, and then a brother of a practice squad, brother of Kyle Pecco, you have DeMonica Pecco, who plays the exact role you might be looking for, but is up there in age, but said he was looking to play. So those are your options. What are you thinking about those names? Do you want to take a shot at an external guy that might have a little bit more potential? Do you want to just defaultly call up Vincent Taylor? What are you thinking there, that they definitely need a guy not only to come up, but to play?
Yeah, because they have to play on Sunday. There's no way around it. Your fourth.
They have to play at least 30%, 30 to 40%.
Yeah, I was going to say probably at least a quarter of a game, if not the third of the game. Maybe they'll do a little bit of adjustments, but I think Starr only played 30% of the snaps last.
So that'll go up,
yesterday.
Obviously.
It'll go up a little bit, but I don't think that they're not trying to push him to 50.
Yeah, they really liked how Harrison Phillips is playing. He was playing well.
He was playing well. He might have been our best defensive tackle for the first 3 games. I don't think he's the most talented. I don't think he would have ended the season that way, but the way he had played in those games, I thought he was really effective. I know the way that PFF came out and graded him that way, that was definitely in the 80s, true. Yeah, and the way that they increased his playing time as time went on, I'd say that his split was higher than I thought it was, and they did a little bit of switching around, and they've been doing this thing with Lorenzo on passing downs where they've put him at defensive tackle. But Harrison Phillips was seeing a lot of that stuff, including times on third down instead of Ed Oliver. I know that had happened early in the game yesterday. So they really believed in him. I'm interested to see what they do. If I had to make my bet, I would say Vincent Taylor is probably coming up and playing on Sunday. I think it's tough to do in week 4. I can't really think of any Patriots that we could go and steal right now. But it's like we're not signing a guy for a playbook. We're signing a guy because he's going to play. He's going to play on Sunday. The Wilkerson one, he's probably the largest name. He's probably the one I'm the least interested in. He came off of a DWI. He's never really played that defensive tackle position. He's been in a lot of 3-4 end situations. And he's a little bit on the smaller side for what you want, even though you already have Ed Oliver in there. But Harrison Phillips was a sneaky 315, 320, whatever he ended up being. He was a pretty big guy. Pecco would be interesting. He's definitely getting up there in age. Would be weird for him to just jump right over his brother and be the guy on the active roster instead of him.
But they'd have info on him.
They do have info on him. I'm sure his brother's probably pushing for him either way. It'd
Well,
be
Kyle's
interesting.
behind Vincent Taylor, so at least he should know that, like, well, it'd be cool to play with my brother for a
Sure.
year.
Yeah, no, I mean, he'd definitely be behind Taylor. I mean, what else did we say? Benny Logan was a guy that I was, as of a year or two ago, last time that he really had a free agency where he could command some money, I was interested in him. He hasn't been great since then. I mean, he's going to be a pretty typical nose tackle at this point. He's just a big dude.
Could
Hopefully,
fit, though. Could really
he's
fit.
a guy in shape, but he's definitely a guy that could fit. You almost always want somebody with penetration skills and be able to get after the quarterback. But if he's going to just serve a role at this point, he could fit, because if he's going to spell star at times, I think that
he does have a little bit of pass rushing ability. That was what he was said to never really amounted.
He could give you a little bit of both.
Yep. So I think he's a good fit. I mean, then we mentioned Willie Henry, Tom Johnson. Tom Johnson was linked to the Bills last year, had a 4.5 sack season. And then Willie Henry's kind of the opposite, 25-year-old with potential. So those are two names.
Yeah, Henry's a guy that probably will give you more of the athleticism and is a little bit of a smaller guy, if that's what you really want to do. I mean, if you're really going to go out, to the street, you do have your options of different types of defensive tackles. And I'm sure there's guys that we're not even thinking of, and I'm sure Bean has their guy already on somebody else's practice squad, or somebody that was cut that they didn't have a chance to. I mean, they really couldn't. I mean, I guess if Connor McDermott's on your team, you can keep any extra position, but they were really set on keeping 4 defensive tackles and being the ones that are on the team right now. Maybe they got a guy that they're thinking of. I'd obviously watch the tryout, circuit and see who's coming into town. But I don't know, if I had to place bet, if I was a gambling person still, I would I'd bet on Vincent Taylor coming up later in the week, probably as late as possible, to protect whoever's going to be coming off the team, which hopefully is Connor McDermott. Well, yeah. I guess you don't even need to drop anybody if
you get to put Harry on IR.
So I guess you really don't have to worry about anything. I mean, maybe you do want to go off of the practice squad because you already know that those guys aren't being signed by anybody right now. Maybe you kind of keep them there. So
that's my opinion.
Release them later.
Yeah, that's what I think.
And I just have a tough time. I guess it happens all the time that people come in off the street and just start playing. And defense tackles, maybe. I mean, it's not easy position. It's definitely a difficult position to play, but it is one that you could possibly just plug somebody in more than more than going and starting a quarterback off the street. You just kind of get a guy in there who can learn quickly and use physicality and et cetera. So, I hate to give like a exactly in the middle answer, but I'd be foolish to say I know who they're going to pick up. I think there are some decent options out there, even though I will stick with the fact that I think that will stay within the team.
Okay. I think that's fair enough. I think that there's more of a 60-40 chance they go outside. I think Vincent Taylor could sit on, like you said, on the practice squad.
I think it's logical.
I think it could be they try some guys out and you're like, Vincent Taylor's a best guy. I think that's more likely than them just saying, okay, Vincent Taylor's default. I think they do have their practice squad that they like.
I think even if they go outside, like it's going to end up being some undrafted from this year's draft.
It could be. Yeah, I would argue then he's got to be on a practice squad, right? If he's good enough to make the Bills' top defense, I
guess so. You never know.
Yeah, I guess not. But then I would think that you would promote Vincent Taylor and then put him on this. I don't know. It's tough for me to believe that he'd be better than Pecco and Taylor, unless he is sitting on another practice squad and for some reason you couldn't get him, so you had to sign Pecco. So I guess that there's a couple of options. You're right. I think that one's possible. I still think that they have grander visions than maybe plucking a guy and a drafted guy, a Ryan Bates version per se. I still think that they're trying to bring in literally the best player that they can for this season only, especially with Harrison obviously coming back next year. Them pretty deep, having Star on big money, Ed Oliver just drafted. I really think that their goal is the last 12 games. Maybe he can't be up to pace for this one, but the last 12 games, especially with the bye coming up, I think you get the most talented rotational defensive tackle that you can. With that, Jason, never count on a Brandon Beane trade. Most likely not going to happen. Sure. And maybe if you do see a Vincent Taylor come up, I don't think it's the end of that position group that he's not talking to players, to GMs of trying to get a 5th round pick, throw a 5th round pick that he just got for a really solid defensive tackle to help the pass rush. I don't know.
Well, you definitely say that at this point, like Buffalo's in the class of teams where if they have a real issue, they'll just like go trade for it with like.
There's enough teams willing to take a pick. Yeah.
That those teams are just like, well, I'm not going to sit here and, we need to have a good guy right now. And New England will be like, all right, we'll trade a 6 for him. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I do think that we're kind of one of those teams now where like, yeah, Ryan Bates, where it's like, well, I can keep a guy I don't like, or we can, keep a developmental prospect. He's not going to play anyways. Like, but we kind of need this guy for the future. I don't know. It's interesting, but at this point now, I don't doubt any of their willingness to go make a move, especially with the way that even though they kind of changed it last draft, but like the way they really just disregard late round picks, like 6th and 7th, like they really just don't expect anything out of it. Even if they did luck out and do well this time, with I don't know, after you draft Ricky Prohl's son, I
think it's fair.
Might as well just trade those for a veteran.
I think it's fair. I mean, I think it's fair that you could call a team like Pittsburgh and say, hey, what's going on over there? You guys just traded your 1st round pick. Are you thinking you're going to compete? You interested in trading one of your guys that have some value? I don't know which ones that could be. But they run a 3-4, but maybe there's a guy out of place or a guy that could fit over here. But that's just quite frankly a team that comes to mind, or a team.
Well, there's plenty of tanking teams. I mean, right. Not even intentionally tanking, but there's still like 5, 6, 7 teams without a win at this point. Some of them with really no hope whatsoever. It stinks that 2 of them are in our division, or 1.5 of them are in our division. But even if you look at a team like Cincinnati at this point, I guess they're
Renell Wren. You liked him.
I like Renell Wren. Actually, I really like all of their developmental prospects. The problem is that everybody on their defensive line, they probably need to play at this point.
Right.
But there's plenty of teams that just have a lot of struggle going on, and you might want to see if they want picks. If a team's going to go looking like they're going to go 3-13, they need to make moves too that make people think like, oh, okay, they're doing something for the future here. And even though I don't agree with selling out for now or trading one of our first for Minka Fitzpatrick or any of that sort of stuff, I don't think trading a 6th or a 5th for a guy that could start or play, 50% of the snaps for us, which is what this person might have to do.
It might have a longer future too.
Out. Yeah. Right. That's not selling out for now. That's just making a logical move and not ruining what we have right now.
Right.
Doing nothing might create enough of a hole that really hurts the team.
Yeah. And I think trading's never out. It might be a way to get a guy you want that you couldn't otherwise have, and the team will take the asset. And there's plenty of teams right now that might do it. So I don't think it's the end. If you see, for now, you might see one of the guys, Vincent Taylor or Pecco, come up. I don't think that means it's over. I don't think that means, I think more so, it means that there's more workouts to come. There's a bye week to come, perfectly timed for trading purposes there of a bye week right in week 6. So, come week 5, I still think that it's possible the Bills at least buy one player. We'll see if it's on the defensive side of the ball or they go and do something on the offensive.
Yeah, it's going to be a tryout for those guys.
Right.
It's going to be a game day tryout. They're not going to have any problem with sending a guy back down or making a move at that point. Again, we have these 3 offensive linemen that we just don't dress every week. Like if we have to carry 5 for 1 week to have this figure out this situation about guys that are going to actually play snaps, like they should do it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And still, you're still going to only have one of those 3 reserve guys. So your top reserve guy is going to play this week with potentially with Feliciano being out. Other than that, sure, you're still going to have your other 2 still sitting there. So I think they like Bates. I think they like Butker a lot. I don't know how much longer they can hold on to McDermott. So especially if the tackles are, they have 3 on the active roster alone with the way that they kind of rotate. And then obviously some versatility with some other players that can pop out to right, Bates, and he's played everywhere. And so can I think they had Ike playing a bunch of spots too. So I just don't see the need to keep those same three players there. And McDermott really can only play one position. So we'll see, Jason. There's some positions they can cut from. They're still doing okay with injuries. I mean, definitely still in the top of the league with limited injuries. And I don't think the defensive tackle's over. I don't think that it's just a defaultly call up your favorite practice squad guy. I think that it's check the trade market, see if anything can be had now or later. Then it's check the vet market for tomorrow workouts, see if anyone's better than the two you have. Maybe check practice squads to see if any of those guys are better than the two you have. And then it's promote a guy for now. So that's kind of my opinion on how this goes with the position that actually an active game day position. This isn't some backup that got hurt. This isn't, maybe Spencer Long, if he goes down, well, that would just kind of suck for your depth, but you can still kind of work with someone to call him up. This wouldn't be, you could even call up another position because of how deep you are at O-line, I guess would be the point. This would be more of a situation where you're getting a guy that needs to come in the rotation and at least play 30% of snaps. This isn't a guy that you necessarily want to work with or develop at this stage. So that's why I lean vet, but they do have two guys in the practice squad, one of which played some snaps last year. So we'll see what happens the next couple of days. And I don't think that means that this is over with. So I have to track this in the next couple of weeks, but man,
it's never over.
It's never over.
That's the answer. And
it's never over with this roster.
And maybe it's because they've had just a low amount of injuries, but they've done a lot less rotating.
A lot.
Sort of the free agency waiver, end of the roster guys than they have before. And I talked about it a lot last episode that it probably means that they're happier with their team, and they should be than normal. But at the same time, I think that anytime that they need to make a move, they'll be back on that carousel. And especially for a guy that has to play, like, they've got to play well. And
it shows that they do actually like their depth on this roster. They've made zero move through 3 weeks. I mean, that's got to be close to this team's record through 3 weeks. I mean, dating back.
Usually we're signing starting offensive linemen and stuff at this point.
Yeah.
Playing Ricky Hatley in playoff games. It's
true. I mean, even under McDermott, it's definitely true. So as always, please go out and check out cover1.net. We're presented by Cover One. Check out the app, premium content. Please download the app, get these shows streamed right to you. Check out that YouTube channel. Please, like and subscribe on iTunes. Our show's there and on other means and other podcast platforms. It's been a great show. It's been really awesome to be on a third straight victory Monday. I don't want to take these for granted ever, but it's been a really good time to be able to 3 weeks in a row do this, and hopefully, you never know, maybe have another chance to do 4 in a row. So the next show will be the Patriots breakdown on their really good defense and Tom Brady, because I think there's vulnerability on their offense, especially if Edelman doesn't play. I don't think it's the best offense they've ever had in the world, Jason. So there's going to be a lot to talk about on the show next week. So on Thursday. So make sure you tune in to the end of the week show. We'll get it up as soon as possible for this week, and should be a fun one. Those tickets, I think, are the highest they've ever been in Buffalo, Jason. It's up to
they're pretty ridiculous,
200 plus a ticket minimum. So make sure you're being safe out there with tickets you're buying. And
I don't want to give anybody any hints right now because I'll be in the ticket buying market too. But just go to the 5 games after it for the same exact price.
I'm going to do it. Yeah.
There's those November and December games, like the Denver game or whatever.
And they could be good.
It's like $25 and they could be in a playoff hunt. They should be in a playoff hunt at that point.
And it's not 90 out. So,
yeah.
Could be good. There's a lot of good reasons, especially when the team's good. Those are fun games to go to. I know I'll be even picking off a Miami game to have a good time, and Washington I know I'm planning on going to. So there's some decent end of the year games that they can do. That Baltimore game, that could be flexed even, right? That could be a night game.
Sure.
That Baltimore game could be a night game, and so could the New England game, but that's there. The Pittsburgh game, but now Pittsburgh's not good. The Jets game was looking like it could have been, but they're not good. So that Baltimore game could be even flexed. So, wait it out. Don't spend all your money now. You could get a flexed Baltimore Ravens under the lights Sunday night football game. That'd be kind of cool. Or even a 4 p.m. game.
My time off.
Yeah, I am.
In case it happens.
I know I'm doing Miami, Washington, and then hopefully plucking off a December game. That's kind of my current plan. So
yeah, it'll cost you about probably less than a New England ticket. So
probably, yeah, and definitely
don't
a New
everybody
England.
listen to that. Don't take my advice because I still need to get most of those.
Yeah, right. So great show as always. Really love this. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We will get to your questions and I'll take some more next time. We'll get that into the preview show. Talked a little bit about defensive tackle today. So thanks for everyone for coming here. From the Kevin and Jason show, I'm Kevin. That's Jason.
Thanks, guys.